Hi, and welcome back to another indie interview. I am your host, as always, Greyworks, the creator of Howling Hoods and Miss Manhattan. And I'm joined by a very, very special guest. I am joined by Charlie G, the creator of Boxtown. Uh,
Hello.
yeah, how you doing, man?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How you doing on this fine hashtag indie animation day?
I know it's exciting. I feel bad. I'm so tuned out of what all
No,
of the
yeah.
things are, but I'm excited for everybody.
Yeah. It's one of those things of like, yeah, it's a good thing I have friends who are in this scene
Yeah.
more. Like they run Jenna, of course, of Sunflower Club. She's one of the people who runs Indie Animation Day, and she did
Cool.
kind of remind me. So yeah, today I've just been retweeting a bunch of stuff. I feel a bit bad that like I don't have too much planned for new people, but uh, animation takes a long time.
It does. I've learned that.
Yeah. But yeah, today we are talking about the very, very special project, Boxtown by Charlie G. Would you like to kind of give us like a little introduction of this?
Yeah. So Boxtown, the way that I think about it is it's kind of like a Dick Tracy type world.
Nice.
Um, but instead of shying away from all the weird, messed up things about a world like that, we lean into those things
Mhm.
basically. So a lot of comedy about it's like an adult working with a little kid,
Mhm.
and so a lot of the game of it is you know keeping things that you always staying on that line of what's appropriate or inappropriate,
Mhm.
but not at all in a sexual way,
No, of
just
course.
completely in a violence danger
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, it's the comedy of the twist, especially of that era of like, oh, like I could totally see like this kid saying, "Oh, gee, whippers," as like there's just a body missing a head on the floor.
yeah, he's a sweet kid, but he's got a lot of
Mhm.
problems, so.
Nice. Was kind of a read because this is kind of a big thing I've always been into. But was the Warren Beatty Dick Tracy movie ever something you saw?
So I never saw it growing up.
No.
I actually watched it when I had decided to. Um, Boxtown actually started out as a web comic that I did when I was
Mhm.
in high school. That was actually about superheroes originally. So the characters of Tim and Bill, they were there, but they look completely different.
Yeah.
And it was a much different world. And when I decided to basically resurrect it and develop it into a potential adult animated series, first the idea was to pitch it to networks, and then essentially Netflix started canceling everything, and we started to enter this current world that we're in the animation industry, where it's just even if you get something made, it's not a guarantee that it's going to be seen
Mhm.
through the traditional studio system. So I was essentially like, well, I mean, I might as well own the characters and just try to do it myself.
Mhm.
And so when I decided to switch the genre, the detectives, it's always something I really like. I was obsessed with Inspector Gadget as a child.
Nice.
Yeah. Fun fact: apparently Miyazaki animated on the Inspector Gadget pilot. I'm not sure how aware
Really?
people are, but yeah,
Huh.
there's cool animation in it. Yeah, just like I work for hire. Like he was at one of the studios that they got to do the pilot. Um, but yeah, so when I decided to shift it more to this kind of noir 30s thing, I did watch Dick Tracy for the first time and was completely blown away by
It's
the
so
production.
bizarre.
It's
Yeah,
so bizarre, but the
I
production
love it.
design is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, only a very slight tangent, but I remember uh, Warren Beatty has an incredible love for Dick Tracy because apparently that's how he
Yeah.
learned how to read. But also,
Really?
very
I didn't know
yeah. Oh
that.
yeah, he's a weird dude. But
That's
also,
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
uh, there's only five colors used in that movie because those are the five colors that were available at the time for the comic book. So just like that visually, that movie is just like actually like kind of one of my favorites.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then,
sorry.
no. Go on.
I was just gonna say, yeah, some of the major influences, there's that. There's Gotham City, obviously, and Batman the animated series. And just ever since I was a little kid, like anytime we would drive through a city, I just remember I didn't live in cities when growing up, and I just remember always, because I was in the suburbs, always just like thinking there was so much promise and like wondering what was in those buildings, and like really that kind of childlike view is really what Bill represents essentially.
Nice.
And yeah.
Would you kind of go mind if we went into kind of the details of Boxtown a bit more?
No, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. So yeah, like here you can see just some early kind of development art and kind of reference as far as like, I just love the idea of like a city that is so dense, and like even kind of like almost taking influence from sort of neo-noir and cyberpunk of like, the sort of neon look.
The Blade Brothers.
Yeah, the idea of having like multiple levels in a city is really interesting to me, and so I think that's something that we might try to do. It's like you have your like, your ground, and then another ground, and then another. Just like stacking, making things as dense as possible, essentially, and all the problems that come with the city like that.
Of course, it does remind me a lot of, because you mentioned this was going to be a comic originally. I can totally see these buildings in like an old Sunday paper of like, especially like the funny pages, or like how they like draw cities or like buildings and stuff like that. Of just like like really heavy on the purples and the shading. And
yeah, my producer Adam Yaniv and I have started saying the phrase "feel the purple." Like you want to feel the purple more, and and not even just literally talking about the colors, but like the tone, the jazzy kind of, it's not, the jumping topics, but sound wise, like we don't necessarily want to do the stereotypes, but at the same time, you do have to fulfill the genre to do it, so it's kind of a balance.
Were there any like real life cities in America you studied for any potential influence, or like a time period in America you took a lot of influence from?
Well, I always grew up living near San Francisco, and I always saw that as sort of like the ideal city as a child. I don't think Boxtown is super specifically based on this city, though. If I had to be honest, like it's like the aesthetics of Chicago mixed with Detroit, right? As far as like the danger and sort of crime levels and such. But yeah, visually, like it pulls from Chicago buildings, it pulls from New York City. I would say it's your kind of standard mishmash type of city. I mean, it's funny because like the way that I kind of think about the world of the show, and I'm not even sure if this will necessarily consistently be a thing, is like I don't think of it as like a city in our world necessarily. Like this is the city of this world,
right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like almost like a city a kid would dream up, like in a good way of like imagine like the most like a kid, like kind of like how when that Batman the animated series, when it has its city, it's like it's set. The show took place in like the 90s, but still has blimps and stuff from like the 40s. But it's like it's more about the iconography than like the super.
And that kind of balance is like something that we're trying to bring through, because like the music, is kind of a balance between like that sort of jazz and then sort of more modern, almost like I just said chipmunk. I meant to say what is chip punk? I can't think of the chiptune.
Okay.
Yeah. And the world, it's like it's kind of similar to the Batman film from 1990, I think.
Tim Burton one.
89. Yeah, because like it visually things look very 40s, but I do think it's important for it to reflect our world, like a funhouse mirror of our world. So they do have technology, they do have phones. It's just kind of like Grim Fandango computer look, where it's like they look more old timey and kind of like typewriters and things like that.
Yeah, but a lot of the way, like the city, a lot of these kind of shows are the characters as well.
Totally. Yeah. Sorry, you probably hear my cat.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right off screen in this direction. Yeah. So here's an early concept art. So what you're looking at here, it's like the Bible for the show, but it's old and outdated because It's actually the pitch Bible that I was creating to pitch to networks. I just never pitched it to any networks because I just decided that I didn't want to do that.
It's fair.
Yeah, but you can kind of see the Tim and Bill. Tim is the yellow con man detective on the left, and Bill is the sort of sweet, optimistic kid. And so obviously you get a lot of contrast between those two characters. And a lot of the game of the show is like Tim's kind of psychopathic way of, more sociopathic way of, you know, manipulating people. But it's not so simple as that. Like there's ways to, he's a mess basically. Like he thinks he's doing the right thing, but his instincts are so bad.
Classic noir.
Exactly. Yeah. Very similar to like Saul Goodman vibes, Jimmy McGill vibes from Better Call Saul. That shows a big influence on this show.
Nice. Yeah. The show feels like, we're going to kind of like the general atmosphere and vibe.
Totally. And again, this is old and this is intended to like try to sell it.
Of course.
You know, so I don't know if I would necessarily make, especially as it's evolved. This Bible was made 3 years ago, at least 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Well, Smiling Friends came out like 2021.
I was like, that's new. That's relevant. I'll put that in there. But I would say, like, if you're looking at anything, probably Venture Brothers and Sam and Max are like the biggest sort of actual influence. There's visual influence from Batman, but I would compare it to those.
Venture Bro. I'm curious with kind of your relationship with those two series. Those two series evolve over time. And Venture Bros is actually maybe my favorite show of all time. Venture Bros is a show that went on for like 20 plus years, and Sam Max is
insane.
Sam Max is a well-known like Telltale series that's had multiple adventures. Do you think there's a benefit to your show, kind of like seeing like, especially like now that Venture Bros is like wrapped up, of like seeing how that show went from like, you can kind of see where it's like trying to find its feet versus like.
I mean, listen, the cynical salesman in me wants to be like, yeah, it's just like Venture Brothers. Everybody love that. Come watch our show. And oh, by the way, it's just like Gravity Falls because Alex is in it. So come watch our show. It's actually not really like Gravity Falls. I should probably say that. I mean, there's similarities, of course.
I can see some.
You look at Grunkle Stan and you look at the character that Alex is playing in this show, and you pretty clearly draw a line between those two things.
Yeah, Bill does remind me. Bill, the small fella, he does remind me a lot of Sam is the rabbit, right? From Sam Max.
Sam is the dog. Max is the rabbit.
Max, he reminds me a lot of Max from especially the later games.
Exactly, and the way that Max will like attack people, like you can draw a pretty clear line to influence wise.
Was there ever like a thought of like, oh, we could potentially like fit this in like a Telltale kind of game, like the older ones, especially when they were like, you know, still like sprites in like 2D?
I mean, I would love if I really want to make a 2D point and click Boxtown game at some point someday. Just, you know, we're just putting all of our resources into the pilot at the moment, but if I've put a lot of thought actually into like what kind of a game would be the coolest. And I feel like it's a point and click adventure game, or it's some kind of game that has like a rage meter that they'll like affects the gameplay, and like I don't know, maybe you could put that in a point and click.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Maybe the first point and click to do that.
But speaking of point and clicks, tonally, I would point to like Monkey Island as far as like the brand of kind of like slightly absurd. It's like it's a balance, you know. Like we're kind of reworking some of the pilot story right now just to have the character arcs be satisfying. We started to get really specific about like what's the game we're playing with these characters. You know, what's the what's the game that we're playing with the audience that's going to make them want to see more of this.
But I mean, of course, all games need their like iconic main characters, and let's get into the boys of Boxtown.
So that's an old title. People were pushing me to change the title at the time, which I always just wanted to be Boxtown. So we tried this out for a while, but you know, but so like this is actually a screenshot from a test that was like the first kind of example of showing the 2D characters on CG backgrounds.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I was actually gonna ask, like, is that door CGI at all? But
Yeah, so that environment's CG and built in Blender. It's
I was
actually
gonna,
built by Mike Roberts,
mhm.
who I worked with on Strange Planet. I think he's over at Mattel right now. Super talented
Mhm.
artist, and we he helped me develop some story ideas too. So all of this is very collaborative. I don't mean to suggest at any point that
Of
like
course, yeah.
it's funny. At times, I'm almost like I'm like I'm smart enough to create the show, but I'm like too stupid to like do certain elements of it.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, of
because I'm not
course.
a composer, or like
That's so hard, dude.
and like I want to learn Blender, and I'm trying, but
Yeah.
at the same time, our production right now, what I'm doing with Adam, our
Mhm.
producer, is kind of designed around creating tools that like even a dumbass like me can
Yeah.
animate something
Yeah,
in
I hear
Blender.
you really have to have a friend to help you do Blender because I tried that the first time and it's like I'm crying halfway through
Yeah.
trying to make a donut. Like, and I have to add sprinkles.
Yeah, part of what's great about Adam is he comes from the world of VFX. So
Yeah.
he
Oh.
actually, yeah, he helped animate. He was one of the animators on the Tiger and Life of Pi. Um, he worked on the Alvin and Chipmunks movies. He worked on I think the Jungle Book
Nice. Yeah.
Disney version, and he created the show Summer Memories for Roku.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
it's cool. It's like our producer. He's a creator himself, but he's also very able to work within the wheelhouse of the show,
Mhm.
essentially.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious. Was the goal for like the background for it to be Blender with it? Was it to be 3D, but 3D in a way that looked like almost like claymation? Or
Well, it's funny because something that made a big impact on me as a kid was the. A lot of people are going to be too young to know what I'm talking about, but you can look it up on YouTube. There used to be this show on the Disney Channel called Vault Disney where they would show old specials and old clips
Mhm.
and kind of behind the scenes stuff. And the intro to that was this sort of uncanny CG. It's supposed to feel like you're on a ride,
Mhm.
like the lap bar comes down and you travel through like different 2D images of Disney stuff and this kind of early CG environment. And it just scared me as a kid, or like it really drew me in. Something about it was like really fascinating to me, and that is somehow an influence on the look of the show.
Mhm.
Um, we're still it right now. We're still figuring out what the exact look of the show will be.
Mhm.
To what degree it'll be the animation will be CG 2D hybrid, or whether it'll be fully 2D animation in
Yeah.
CG environments. We're still playing with that.
Yeah.
I think honestly, someday, no matter what ends up happening, I do want CG versions of the characters just to use in social media and stuff like that,
Mhm.
or do a CG episode, or
Look,
you
yeah.
know, we're
Yeah.
still. But that's part of what's exciting is we're figuring out what you can do with Blender, and
Okay. Yeah.
there's a lot you can do.
Yeah. I was really into stop motion growing up, like because I was a huge fan of Ray Harryhausen. It's like Blender has come so long to the point where like you can make like almost like lifelike stop motion models in that
Yeah,
alone, but still like that's in Blender. Because yeah, I
yeah,
made one claymation project when I was in high school. It was a sci-fi short, dark comedy short,
that's
and
awesome.
it was a nightmare to make. It was so
Yeah,
long. It is lost to time now, probably.
you don't have it anywhere. You don't have the video file.
No, I was
Uh,
I used all the stuff from my school's like
yeah,
computer room.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You use
Ooh,
what you have access to.
yeah.
Yeah. So here's Tim. I think part of what's interesting to me about this character is you get a sense that he has fallen a little bit from his sort of, there's sort of an idea of like he used to have morals.
Mhm.
He used to work at Argus, the sort of big detective agency that's sort of the big scary conglomerate in our world,
Mhm.
before sort of going rogue. But there's this character that is his friend from when he was at Argus and his
Mhm.
partner from back then. And she sort of serves as a link to the audience that kind of communicates, hey, this guy's a shitbag, but he wasn't always like this. Like it's a lot of the show is figuring out how much. I'm probably saying too much here, but how much to redeem him and
Mhm.
how much to push him down the non-redemption path. Because I think what we're figuring out more and more is that it's Bill's story.
Yeah.
You know?
I love the examples of Jimmy and Rusty you use because they're interesting as like anti-heroes, because like I do think there's kind of the trap of anti-heroes of making them look too cool.
Totally.
Yeah, this man has kind of like sad cat vibes, or just like
he's got some Don Draper to him. He's got some like Clockwork Orange kind of with the like eyelashes. It's like part of the idea with the dynamic duo at the center of our show is the thinking is like kind of like almost the problem. I'm just parroting something my producer just said, but it's almost like the problem with Dick Tracy is that the kid is there to serve the detective story when actually the more interesting thing is to center the kid and have everything else support his story, you know. But it is very much a buddy comedy. I'm a big buddy comedy fan. Toy Story is my favorite movie. I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Tommy Boy. Blues Brothers is a big influence on the show. Yeah.
I can totally see definitely.
Sorry, my cat is like going crazy all of a sudden.
You're good, man.
What's up, buddy?
But it definitely seems like a great like kind of half of like kind of the odd couple mix. And if I'm not mistaken, Alex Hirsch is the voice actor of this character, correct?
Yeah, Alex voices Tim.
Nice.
I can talk about that.
Yeah. Go on. Like, what was the process? Because that's he has a great vocal range, but also just a great comedic voice.
It's amazing. So, I worked with I used to be board partners with the person who created Big City Greens, and when that show was greenlit, there was a party, like a crew, like a party, like for the people who worked on the pilot and other people to celebrate. And Alex was there, which is the first time I ever saw him, but I didn't talk to him. I think I said hi to him. Oh my God, Kitty. I'm going to have to boot you soon. I know. She gets vocal when she feels like she's being ignored. And so basically, so that was that. Fast forward, that was probably like 2016. Yeah, fast forward. And by the way, you don't need me to tell you about it, but the Book of Bill, the Gravity Falls book that's out right now is incredible. So people should go check that out. Seeing this graphic just reminded me.
It's trend. It's all the memes are on Twitter now.
It's transcendent. But so fast forward a few years, we did an episode on Big City Greens where there was a song. There's like a character who like sings this song that my board partner and I at the time wrote, and they cast Alex as that character. And so didn't go to the record. I wasn't a part of that or anything. But fast forward to 2018, I went to rehab. I don't know why that's relevant, but I had just gotten back from rehab in the story, which is like how I like remember it in my mind. I like mark the time. And I went to, I used to live in Los Feliz, so I just gotten home. And Abe Graining, who's Matt Groening's son, and he works in animation. He had a party, and I went there with Spencer Rothbell, who co-wrote the pilot with me years later. And Alex was there. And so that was the first time I chatted with him, if I remember correctly, because I was like, hey, I worked on this episode, and I wrote a song that, I love that. I wrote a song that you sang, or co-wrote it. And, so we chatted there. Fast forward years later, there was a little bit of a family tragedy that happened on my girlfriend's side of the family, and there was a GoFundMe. And I was promoting it on my Instagram. And Alex made like a big donation to that, which is really sweet. Yeah. And so I messaged him and I wrote to him. I thanked him. And so that opened up a dialogue in like Instagram DM messages. And then I did the crowdfund like about a year later for Boxtown. I think it was the same year. And he donated like $1,000 to it, like a lot of money. And which is really nice. And so I wrote him a thank you message and I was like, hey, this is so sweet of you. And then he was like, hey, if you ever need a cameo or like someone to get shot immediately and die, like let me know. And so that kind of planted the seed in my mind because we didn't really know who to cast as Tim. And then I was like, you know, it's just the idea kind of planted in my mind because I was like, oh, wait a minute, that might actually work really well based on that character he played in Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
You know, what Tim is a different, distinct voice to that, but it comes from a similar place.
Would you say him being, you know, chosen as the voice actor kind of like influenced the character to a degree, or did it like, was it just like magic, like it's there, or?
So the script was written, but when we recorded it with Alex, the great thing about Alex is because he's an animator and he's a writer, and he's been on the other side of the booth a lot. He is very comfortable riffing, and he's very comfortable. Like we would put some alts in there, and we were like, you know, kind of just sort of wondering how comfortable he would be with, you know, the idea of like improving a little bit, and he just took the ball and ran with it. Like the character is him, you know. It's like it's impossible to untangle the two in my mind now, especially now that like we recorded him, like I don't remember, like I guess over a year ago. It feels like 2 years. I can't remember, but so I've heard it for a long time now as I'm editing stuff, and you know, so yeah, you know, the other kind of piece to that puzzle was finding the right actor for Bill in a way that we knew would bounce off of Tim correctly.
Yeah. I mean, as we're on the subject of our little main man, here he is, Bill the orphan.
There he is. Yeah, it's funny. Like as the more we work on the show, the more he moves away from like, oh gee, oh shucks, to like that, but with an edge underneath everything. Because the thing about Bill, you know, he's an orphan. He's the only orphan at the orphanage he lives at. He loves detectives. He's like this cute kid who's into all this gruesome horror, true crime things, but he sees it as like Pokemon cards or something. Like it's not dark to him. And so yeah, Bill's the sweet kid, but he has this condition, which is known as ORD, oppositional rage disorder. So anytime that this sweet little kid is backed into a corner or threatened, essentially, if you want to flip, his eyes turn red, and he essentially goes into rage mode, and he becomes like a little John Wick or a little Michael Myers, and is just an absolute fucking killing machine. Which is why Tim is like, oh, I have a lot of enemies. It'd be good to have this kid around because who can fuck with me? You know, like it's like a little bodyguard.
Yeah. In Boxtown, are the adults that they come across afraid to fight a kid because it's a kid, or are they like, no, I'll fight a kid?
I mean, I think in the pilot, nobody expects what Bill is going to do when it happens. You know, like they don't know. A lot of the time, they don't know this little package contains, you know, a murder machine.
Yeah, seeing some of the concept art, it does kind of remind me of like if the Scooby Gang were like in like I don't know, like a True Detective or what was the David Finch thing, Mindhunters. But the thing is, like they would always catch the killer, but they're still the Scooby Gang.
Yeah, so we're always we're always trying to balance that silliness with the adult and darkness and, you know, violence and all that.
I notice how you have two Michael Cera characters here.
I know, yeah. That was really a reference point earlier. It was like somewhere between Michael Cera and Burt Ward from the 1960s Batman. But now that we have cast a new actor as Bill, Sarah Lou, she, you know, she's pretty new. She does some puppet productions and super talented. And now in my mind, like that's what the voice is. Like it's just funny. You know, you cast people and you want to make sure that it works. And once it does work, it just, you know, your mind just is like, well, that's just what it is now.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to hear the voice in your head and write the characters. If you know how it's literally going to sound.
Yeah. I've done like it's always like, especially when you find someone who's just like that right voice or that right like character dynamic that you can't really hear anything different, or like how they influence the character as well. It's just like, you got it.
Totally, yeah. And a lot of it, like we just recorded Sarah for the pilot, and so a lot of it was like trying to find exactly where that performance is, because I think there's a tendency in a lot of animated things to have the characters sound like wow, like very kind of wacky.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, which is really not what we want to do. So it almost was a layer of stripping away the cartoon voice, sort of, but having it at times, be able to pop into it a little bit. But a lot of it is much more grounded now that we've started working with her and figuring out how exactly the character works best.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible talent when like you have of course an adult voice actor voicing a kid, because I think it's kind of something that like a lot of like performers kind of like put underneath them of like, oh yeah, I'll just be super over the top or whatever, but like in a way that kids they don't really act, or like
it's funny. I worked on Harvey Beaks at Nickelodeon, and that had real kids in it, which is funny because like I was so gung ho about the idea, and they're great in it, and it's part of the style and it works. It's just funny how much easier sometimes working with an adult actor is.
Of course,
so I see the benefit. If it's like kind of a peanutsy thing, then it makes sense to use real kids. I just don't think this is
no,
especially with the profanity occasionally and violence.
And kid, like it may not be best to have kids start to act, even in like indie stuff.
Probably,
so it's just like let's keep it away. But yeah, I mean, kids aside, we don't just have boys in the Boxtown. We got some dames.
It's true. Yeah. So this is the Pitch Bible. So this is actually an old design of this character. She looks different now. She's been redesigned by Katie Mitrov, who's an extremely talented board artist and designer. Worked on things like Steven Universe and many other great projects. Katie's great. She's super talented. And so, like Pinkerton is an interesting character. She is the heir to the Argus Detective Corporation, which is sort of the big multimedia conglomerate in this world. They're kind of like, kind of similar to Vought and the Boys, mixed with like Disney. And so essentially, like, she is faced with a lot of skepticism because of nepotism. She's a bit of a nepo baby, and also the sort of general sexism. But what's interesting about her is, she's unlike Tim and Bill, she's always in the public eye. And so sometimes she will secretly go to Tim and Bill and get them to do things for her that she wouldn't be able to do, sort of walk the sketchier path. And I really want her and Tim to be like, they're frenemies, essentially. Like they are as often antagonistic as they are friendly to each other in the series.
Yeah. Now I know you said this is like an older design. I am curious: is the new design going to have her packing heat? Because she's got a gun on her in this piece.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Nice. Would you say the character's influences kind of stayed the same with like more hard-strung with like some of these characters of the past, or?
It's funny. I realized while we were working on it that it's just my sister character. Like that's kind of, not visually so much, but like
that's the spirit.
What this character is, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's like visually it harkens back to like 1940s stuff, but it's a much more contemporary kind of character.
Is she ever gonna kind of the blonde dame kind of thing? Are you did you ever think of like maybe asking your sister to voice this character, or
I don't think that necessarily would have worked.
Okay.
I mean, I'm hesitant to voice characters myself.
Yeah.
Let my cat out really quick.
No, you're good. You're perfectly all right, man.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, you are okay.
But yeah, like we haven't. I think there's a lot of potential for Pinkerton, especially just sort of the way that she's kind of there to as I said earlier, kind of remind the audience, at least her function in the pilot, to remind the audience that Tim wasn't always this way. But she can also warn Bill. Even though she's playful with Tim and their friends and everything, she's like, all right, watch, kid, he's just going to dump you by the side of the road. I'm telling you. And Bill is like, no, you wouldn't do that. We're partners. And then he gets abandoned by the side of the road. And she's like, I told you so. That kind of character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've seen these characters a lot in promo pieces.
The nuns, yeah. So these are Bill's guardians. They've raised him, since he was a baby or a toddler. Bill has mysterious, unresolved trauma in his past. That's what causes his ORD condition. Mm-hmm. And it also makes him a handful for the nuns. So they love Bill, but he's been returned to the orphanage so many times. He's so unintentionally destructive and high energy that they have their hands full. And so, when somebody like Tim comes along and is looking to adopt Bill, maybe not for the right reasons, maybe to use him as a pawn, mm-hmm. They're sort of, they're susceptible to being rid of Bill for a little while, even though they love him. Mm-hmm. They're a little overwhelmed, and they're kind of inspired by, there's obviously the Blues Brothers nun influence. And mm-hmm. then there's also, kind of a Sound of Music, what are we going to do about Maria type vibe as well. Yeah, so these are concept illustrations by Melody Isa, another super talented artist. Originally, as you can see on the upper right, there used to be more of an element where Bill had a true crime podcast. That's been de-emphasized a little bit. But the idea is that Tim and Bill run their orphanage they run their detective agency out of the orphanage. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so they have kind of a wary relationship with Tim where it's like they don't trust him. They don't really want him to corrupt Bill, but they'll kind of look the other way to sort of mm-hmm. get some time off.
Yeah,
keep quiet.
Kid's already.
Yeah. And Tim put some money into the collection till too.
Okay. So. Yeah. Would you say the nuns themselves get up to like anything nasty? Like, are they willing to like throw hands, or are they like the angels on everyone's shoulders, or at least Tim's shoulders?
Yeah. So the sort of central nun is Sister Sarah. She's just kind of the more wholesome, like genuinely worried about Bill. Mm-hmm. Whereas Sister Charity is much more spicy and much older and just doesn't give a fuck. And Sister Claire is much more deadpan. So they do get up to shenanigans, essentially. Mm-hmm. Usually it's Sister Charity is kind of like, ironically, the devil on Sister Sarah's shoulder a little bit, as far as like, come on, if we're free of Bill, we can relax and have a vacation. Sister Charity would be willing to throw hands and kick somebody's ass. Not Sister Sarah. Probably not Sister Claire. Sister Claire would just watch and make unhelpful, deadpan comments. Mm-hmm. I feel pretty confident about that.
Oh, that's wonderful. But any ideas of like who's going to voice them? Or are they going to be like creator voices or fun cameos or anything like that? Or
so they're cast. I'm not sure if we've fully announced the nun cast.
Yep, that's totally okay.
Yeah. But I'm very excited. They're all cast. We've only recorded one of them. I think we need to re-record her though, just because that was like a couple years ago. Yeah. Just the nuns vibes that does kind of give me like almost like creator cameo vibes a bit. Like totally, yeah.
If you could do like a light like lady Irish accent.
Yeah. Well, in the scraps, they're all me right now, which is a problem because it's very confusing. So we do need to re-record the actors or record them for the first time.
Yeah, that is the way with storyboards. But
currently, all the nuns are me, which is really confusing.
Mm-hmm. We got some side characters. So
upper left there's the King of Crime. So in Boxtown there is a sort of hubristic, abandoned theme park called Private Island, mm-hmm. which is on a private island. And it was created by the Argus CEO in sort of a failed bid to combine detective true crime with family fun theme park entertainment. Mm. There was a giant magnifying glass in the middle of the park instead of it's sort of the symbol of the park instead of a Disney castle. But on day one, the sun shone through the magnifying glass and started burning people. So they had to shut it down. but it's been abandoned for like 30 years. And the King of Crime, he runs his sort of crew of colorful gangsters out of the abandoned private island theme park.
Yeah, but when you said true crime, like theme park, I'm like, man, just give it like 10 years. We're almost there.
We're so almost there.
I mean, we have true crime like tours, which kind of get like a little insensitive.
Well, I mean, a lot of Boxtown comes from me wrestling with the fact that I enjoy consuming true crime content and being like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
you know, like that kind of ambivalence is very much baked into this world.
No, yeah. Just the moral greatness of all that. And when you mentioned also like his colorful gang, all that stuff, that did very much remind me of like almost like Dick Tracy bad guys like Hammerhead and
that's kind of what we're ripping on there. That plus like Batman's Rogues Gallery, sort of
the Batman Beyond guy, the Rat King, or was that his name? There was a rat character I remember who was just
okay.
I'm the king.
I haven't seen Batman Beyond since I was a kid.
It's been maybe 15 years since I've seen it, but
I remember loving it. I remember really liking it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah,
actually, I remember in first grade, somebody confessed to me on the playground that he was Batman. but he said no, but I'm the Beyond Batman.
I'm the Beyond Batman. I'm the cool.
And I was like, sure, you're Batman.
Yeah. I was a dumb kid on the playground. I've been like, what?
Yeah.
And we got a dog with a gun in his mouth. Is that just like the standard kind of like domestic life in Boxtown, or is that someone's dog?
So that's Woofy. He used to be a sort of Spuds McKenzie was a beer party dog in Budweiser commercials. He's kind of inspired by that. Whereas he used to be the mascot of Good Boy Beer, but he left that life behind to be a terrifying gangster on the streets of Boxtown. So he is a gangster. We don't have talking animals in this world. Probably. I'm still, I don't know. But he growls, and he has one of those pads that allows him to speak by creating sentences.
Yeah. It's also more terrifying if the dog just doesn't talk himself.
Exactly. He's a tough customer.
The one in the upper right, is that the pad he uses, or
no? So that's Crime Pewter. That's from one of the episodes in the original pitch packet, where essentially Bill wanted Tim to play checkers with him, but Tim is too busy and he keeps putting him off. And so Bill codes a rudimentary friend to play checkers with him. And you may or may not be able to figure out this is all a commentary on Netflix, so it's kind of dated. But essentially what happened is Tim was like, well, let's make this thing useful. And he fed Bill's true crime podcast into it. And it became a robot who essentially would declare that somebody was guilty of a crime and go kill them. So they create a murderous sort of pre-crime. And that was kind of a commentary on how Netflix at the time was just sort of would let the algorithm dictate everything, whether a project would live or die. So I don't know. That's kind of a dated commentary by now, but yeah. So the idea is basically it grows out of control, and essentially at the end of the episode, they sort of swipe a magnet on him, scramble his brains, and throw him into the dumpster. And then they later fish him out of the dumpster because he's nice now, because he basically has computer brain damage, and he becomes the receptionist for the detective agency. So
yeah, very nice. And we got some old folks and maybe a corpse on the bottom right.
Yeah, so that's Mummy Man. He is famed detective Rick Macy. I bet you can't figure out who that character is named after.
Who could that possibly be?
His rival. And so Rick Macy and Mummy Man both live in the retirement home now, where they're buddies. They're roommates now. But there's an episode where Bill, using his encyclopedic knowledge of their adventures, reminds Mummy Man of all the horrible things that Rick Macy has done to him. and there's a murder mystery essentially. But yeah, he's from the old school, you know, like he's ancient. He's like hundreds of years old. He's the, you know, kind of like an old Sicilian mobster type.
Yeah. Would you say it's like almost like he would almost be from around the time when Dick Tracy was made, like 1930s, maybe to like
even older?
earlier.
He's even older. He's inspired by Carl Reiner's 1,000-Year-Old Man comedy bit. So he's like that old in my mind. Like he's just ancient.
Yeah, the locations of Boxtown. Because it sounds like all of them have like, you know, like a lot of thought put into them. A lot of these are very good. Was the same guy who did that the door? Someone who did he also do the background for the Boxtown like buildings as well?
Yeah. So Mike Roberts was the one who originally modeled that street shot. We actually, the Golden Gun on the right there, that's sort of the detective themed bar watering hole. That's all modeled in CG now, but that's done by a different artist named Ant, who's really talented. And so we've got a few people building things. We also have Star's art bar online. She has helped, you know, 3D fabricator for characters, environments. So, you know, the team is building a sort of, I kind of created the concept art for these, but they're kit bashes and their image bashes in Photoshop. They're not like, you know, it's just something I roughed out quickly.
Of course.
And then our very talented CG artists will actually make it work, which I'm very appreciative of. It's exciting, you know, like the sets are like, they feel real. They feel like real locations. You know, I want to put on my VR headset and just like walk around in them at room scale or something.
Yeah, you could probably do one of those VR shorts that so many people have done.
Totally.
But
it lends itself to that.
Yeah, the Trust Argus thing. It kind of reminds me of like almost like the Vegas like fake pyramid places they have.
It's inspired by the Cabela pyramid. I don't know where that is. The fishing shop that's built out of a pyramid. Or maybe it's a Bass Pro shop. I'm not sure what it is. Yes, it is a Bass Pro shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So visually, that was the inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, like, if there's going to be like a murder mystery at a place, like Bass Pro Shop is like one of the locations because there's just so much stuff around here. Yeah, it's like that, or like one of the items of like a TGI Fridays. It's just going to come down and like kill someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have some episode synopsis. Would you like to kind of like? I know you said that this is like, you know, still changed, but would you like to kind of go through like what's your initial?
I mean, to be honest, these are all old. But I can talk about, you know, sort of what they were. The pilot, that still describes the pilot in extremely vague terms. I mean, this comes from when we were originally going to pitch it to networks, essentially. So we needed these sort of episode ideas. I think it's an open question whether we're still going to do them. I kind of don't want to say too much in a way, but it's an open question whether, you know, you create these plans, you know, to just as a guideline emotionally where it's going to be. The way that I think of it is I would love to sort of shake up the dynamics every season. So like, you know, eventually like Bill might have, you know, maybe Pinkerton gets a partner and it's like, and Bill, it's a kid and Bill has a rival. And, you know, like, I just always want to kind of be mixing these things up essentially.
Yeah. Kind of like when you went for the vibe, I do mainly see like how like the Venture Bros influenced the most of like every season, like it's gonna be like the story keeps on going and changing, but still
so
the heart
absolutely it'll never be that dramatically changing.
It's still kind of,
I do respect that about the Venture Brothers that you know, Adventure Time is similar where like instead of stagnating it like kind of changed and got weirder, which I really respect, to be honest, is like a choice.
Pendleton Ward, he's a very like He's a very weird guy, but he also seems to care a lot. But he
Brilliant.
also, yeah. Fiona Cake, wow, that just like got knocked out of the park.
Yeah.
But
I love all the spinoffs they're doing. I think it's really cool.
yeah, also Midnight Gospel. Yeah, one of the most creative shows I've watched. Penned by him, which
Totally.
definitely, if you have Netflix, I guarantee I highly recommend watching that. The viewers at home, because that is like one of like the most creative, just like touching but also funny, like and visually amazing, just like animation pieces. And
Absolutely.
kind of the vibe I've also got from this show of like it is an adult comedy and all that stuff, but it doesn't seem like in your face adult comedy the way like some is like
Yeah.
stereotyped to a degree. Like it kind of has the vibe of a kid's show, but like like after hours basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's part of why I think it would have been difficult to pitch it, to be honest, because it's like I would get feedback sometimes of like, oh, well, like an adult animated show, like it's supposed to look a certain way.
Mhm.
And I would very much be like, yes, that's exactly what I don't want to do. I don't want to do that look because everything is that look, which is changing, is really changing. Even Strange Planet, which I worked on, is sort of an example of something that's like got a foot in the adult world and a foot in the kids world. I come from, working at Cartoon Network, on board-driven stuff, Nickelodeon, Disney TV. So it's almost like doing like the fucked up version of one of those shows is how I look at it. Kind of the fucked up, twisted, almost kind of lull people into thinking it's more kiddie than it is. And then they, I'm not somebody who really goes for graphic violence, but you have to bring it to a certain degree if you're really going to do it, And I think a lot of Bill is designed to just kind of take the audience and the characters of the show by surprise, where it's like he's got this kind of vibe of like a Dipper, like a KO or something, but it goes to first of all, he's younger because he's 8 years old, and it just goes to more violently twisted places, I would say. With the retribution that he delivers upon people.
It's like, man, kind of a retrospect. I think maybe like the first kind of like big show that kind of like did that turn was like when Samurai Jack got like fully rebooted for like an adult swim show. And it's like it's still Samurai Jack. It's but it's just like characters can swear a bit more, characters can move a bit. And it's like that's fun because we are getting more like diverse, like both voices but also just talent and like storytelling devices with a lot of the with a lot of like more adult animation, especially with stuff like Arcane or Invincible, like just some straight dramas to a degree. And I love that. I love that we can have we could have incredibly funny, dark, even like grotesque, like adult animation, but then we can also have very thoughtful, sad, or deep stuff. And would you like to tell people where they can potentially support this?
Let me Google our Patreon again. It's funny, we go through times where we're like so busy that we kind of forget a little bit about Patreon, which I probably shouldn't say, but we're I definitely want to sort of revitalize it and reboot it soon. It's one of the best ways to support us right now. You can find it at patreon.com/
this may not be it.
So there's like an old one is what's confusing. That's like not the right one. But I'll make sure to get you the link for this to post with.
Okay,
no, I found it.
Okay.
It is it's Bandit Mill Animation. It just looks like there's no post for some reason until you like click further. So it's patreon.com/ BANDITMILL animation.com.
Patreon. Ooh. Sorry. I'll bring it right up. But don't worry, for everyone watching, the links when I post this up on Indie Interviews, it all the links will be provided in the description below if
Excellent.
you are interested in that as well. What are your potential further goals with Boxtown if the pilot does become a success?
I'm very hopeful that we can make more. It all depends on the audience wanting there to be more. So we're doing our best to, put that crack cocaine or whatever in there to make people like it. It's funny. It's like you start to you start to find the very delicate, specific kind of narrative game that you're playing the more that you dig into the story. And that is like really exciting and fun to me. I feel like I'm very excited about it right now. There's a lot that I want to do with it. There's, if it's up to me, I would just make episodes of this for the rest of my life probably, but we'll see what the audience thinks.
Now, just out of curiosity, are there how many planned episodes you have? Would you be happy if you just got to do 8 episodes, or do you want to do
8 episodes would be amazing. That sounds great to me. In my mind, a season to me is probably between 8 and 10 episodes.
Nice.
There's an ending to the show, and there's 3 major arcs that I want to do. Nice. So that would probably be 3 seasons. In a world perfect where it's a huge hit and everybody loves it, I think I would probably do those 3 seasons, and then see if anybody else wants to take it over, so that I could be an audience member and watch it eventually.
Oh yeah. 30 seasons. That's like the ideal amount of seasons for animated show as well.
Totally.
Yeah. How long would you plan for each episode to be? Kind of like the standard 15 minutes or 30 minutes or
22 minutes.
22
it's pretty standard to 22. When you watch a 30-minute episode of television on TV, it's actually 22 minutes, and there's 8 minutes of ads. We're shooting for 22 minutes. The runtime now is 22:30, I think. It'll be the episodes will be somewhere around there, but at the same time, we're not going to kill ourselves to stick to a specific.
No. There's the benefit also of indie animation to a degree of you don't need to do as much crunch time and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Especially because a lot of these are also from workers as well, or people who have been in the trenches of animation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And would you like to tell people where they can follow both you but also Boxtown itself?
Absolutely. If you want to follow me, I am on Twitter as or X or whatever the hell we're supposed to call it now, as at Charlie P. Gavin, CharliePGavin. And if you want to follow Boxtown, it's at Boxtown Official. BOXTOWNOFFICIAL.
Nice. And I see you even have a Discord server.
We do have a Discord server. It's linked on our Twitter. It should be easy to find. For anybody who might be interested, I'll make sure to put a new link up on the Twitter as well.
Nice. Who's this handsome devil? Who's this handsome devil interviewing people? Thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Of course, I am Michael from Greyworks. I'm the creator of Howling Hoods and Miss Manhattan, and the next Howling Hoods episode should hopefully be done sometime in September. Hopefully, of course, we're all there's a team of 7 people at most, so
totally. Yeah, I love what you're doing, by the way. I've only watched a little bit of it.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Because my origin is comics, but going to animation's a whole other beast.
Totally.
And of course, I was joined by the very wonderful Charlie G. You can follow him on Twitter, on Discord. All his links to support both him and Boxtown will be the links below when I post this on Indie Interviews. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye, everyone.